And we are live back here on Tuesday afternoon, March 31st, 2026, in-house transportation. We have our favorite fiscal analyst from the Joint Fiscal Office live and here in the flesh to talk about S326, the MV bill, and walk us through fiscal notes and other impacts and understand it's fairly straightforward money-wise anyway.
Yes,
Welcome back, Logan.
for the record, Logan Mover at the Joint Fiscal Office. I have a pretty straightforward fiscal note for you. Talk about the DMV bill as it passed the Senate. You all have started working on it. Has Damien walked through any of this bill with you all yet? Yes, okay. This will be fairly easy then. This should be on the committee page. It's also on, I believe, the GA website if you look under the fiscal information on the bill page on there. So revenue wise, as the little box mentions here, it's de minimis impact on revenues. There is one section which we'll get to, which will increase the expenses incurred by the DMV by approximately $32,000, relatively small. We'll talk about that in just a second. But just going through the sections that do have sort of very small fiscal impacts is sections 1 through 5. This is those identification cards for detained and sentenced individuals. This is just sort of increasing who can get these for free to detained individuals, and then also increasing it to include operator's license and replacement learner's permits. So they could already get the non-driver IDs. They just expand it. And then for detained individuals, it'd be expanding it to those people as well. You can see in the second paragraph there, in 2025, there were 465 free non-driver IDs given out. And then the DOC estimates that there's an average of about 46 individuals who are detained per period. So it's an increase of 46 new people would be able to get these IDs. All in told, it's a small number of people and a relatively small fee. So this is really just a de minimis impact to any revenues that would have been generated from those people having to then pay the fee for whatever the license was. And I have the fees there if you're interested. The non-driver IDs are $29. The replacement operator's license and learner's permits are $25. So times that by 46, it's small. Section 8, this is a penalty for smuggler's notch. Just the increase from $1,000 to $10,000 for all instances of the violation. And then if the violation substantially impedes the flow of traffic, it's increased from $2,000 to $20,000. We don't really estimate revenues from civil penalties because we try to assume that all people are following the law and that there will be no stoppages, but there might be stoppages, so you might see something. But this section, fees for towing. So this is where the sort of increase in expenses to the DMV comes in. This section would allow towing services to charge up to $250 to tow a vehicle out of an abandoned vehicle out of public property. So it was $125. This would increase it to $250 because the state would now be charged essentially twice what they used to be charged. It would increase the potential expenses by $32,000 a year. This would depend on how many vehicles need to be towed.
I assume they just pay the full bill. It's not like you bid for this or anything. That I assume if they tow a vehicle, they're gonna say it's $250.
I believe that's how it
It
works.
said $125 and it probably didn't quite cover the cost. I don't know.
Yeah, my understanding is that $125 was pretty cheap to tow a vehicle, so $250 was, I think, sort of what the department and then towing people thought was a more reasonable price to charge for that. But I think the DMV could probably speak to the specifics of this section and how it actually works out in the process better than I could.
Do we know where they tow it? They don't tow it to the next rest area.
I cannot answer that, but I'd assume not.
Some holding lots around.
Was there any discussion about per diems once they have towed it, storage and per diems or any recovery, and then whether the state's responsible for any of that?
Not that I'm aware, but the department could answer that better than I. I was not there for all the discussion on this section, so.
But there is no per diem charge on that bill or it's in
I
that.
don't think so, but Damien or the department could follow up on that for sure.
Thank you.
Second,
I'm sorry, a little more part for the committee. Back a few years ago, we took a whole bunch of testimony on towing fees. There's a significant amount of abandoned vehicles for a variety of reasons. Some are criminal, some are not, some are broke down, but they're on abandoned vehicles and they're not coming back. But there was a huge, we took quite a bit of different testimony from a number of different people and it was at a point where they weren't even billing, most of the towing companies weren't even billing back to the state for the work. There was a whole issue around not getting paid and they'd given up on even billing the state for the money. The money went unused in the budget for years, right?
They had like 20, 30,000.
Those
Yeah,
that-
it's just never got
Patty's,
used.
I think
Yeah.
probably only, well, maybe Molly might remember too, but you know, this was back when I first got here. We spent a fair amount of time on this. I was surprised at the things we learned. But there is a queue for your turn to tow the next bad tow job. So getting into that though, I'm not too deeply, because then that brings up some urban rural concerns.
Whole bunch of
Towing.
issues.
You start talking towing, you're gonna have colleagues knocking on your door. Just as a FYI,
Maybe a couple of birds.
you're gonna get some, it's a sensitive issue for a number of our colleagues. So anyway, that's for whatever it's worth. Next.
section 17, this is another penalty for unregistered snowmobiles. This is increasing the civil penalty from $135 per violation to $450 for the first offense and $500 for second or subsequent offenses within 3 years. Again, we like to assume that everyone is following the law, so I don't have an estimate for this, but I did want to mention it here because you could very well see some people still violating this section.
Is there any split revenue in that in VAST or any of the other, or the originator in terms of the law enforcement agency, because they use Fish and Wildlife and they use state police too?
I would need to go and check. That's a good question. I don't think so, but I'd want to double check the statute and see if it's broken out there.
Thank you. Representative Pop?
Where do these fees go?
So these fees would go into the T fund, generally, and then fees get a little complicated. We get some fees go into, or penalties, I guess, go into the T fund, and then some are broken out into different funds. I don't have a list of them. I could get you a list of the sort of breakdown. There's like surcharges and stuff on the fees that go to certain places. But if it's like fees under Title 23, which I believe this section is, they go into the transportation fund.
Searching, I think it's like domestic violence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it just seemed like a big jump in fees. It, makes me just go, nobody's complained about
It's
this.
a huge jump, snowmobile.
Well, we will hear the testimony, but I do recall that the registration and all the stuff altogether is like $300. So the 135 was providing somewhat of an incentive to not comply is what it was sort of driven out of. So we need to potentially the understanding, we'll get more testimony is that, but if the fine's not higher, if the penalty is not higher than the correct way to do it, then it.
And your description just says unregistered snowmobiles. Is no VAST sticker considered unregistered?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so
That's a good question for Damien,
Is it just
that's fast.
Unregistered vehicles, or if my snow machine's registered, then, but I don't have a VAST sticker. Is this penalty, is it the same? It'd be good to know.
For Damien could walk you through what the statute says on that.
I'm not sure how we're gonna avoid having VAST on the witness list, but that will bring up other issues. Perhaps we'll get an end of the year report on the snowmobile season, some of their safety issues they had and testimony on this all at once.
I don't know, this is probably maybe a question for Damien, but, is there a point where we go like too excessive on our fines, like it would be deemed illegal in a sense, like.
I think there is, but
20,000, come on, we just went to 1 million.
Yeah, million.
You know, something like crazy.
I believe there is, but that'd be a good question for you
Yeah.
to answer.
That would be under the unusual, cruel and unusual.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, cause it just seems like a drastic increase, but like, where's the ceiling?
Smuggler's Notch, $1 million.
Yeah, yeah,
I put a big sign up for that 20,000 on it too.
oh, God.
Hmm.
So, yeah, we'll have to pass that today.
Okay.
Section 19, this is for non-domiciled CDL license. This would establish a $40 yearly fee to get your 1 year non-domiciled CDL. There were 16 of these issued in 2025. So again, this is a de minimis fiscal impact. And then 26, this would establish an annual registration fee for limited use specialty vehicles. I'm assuming Damien spoke to what these are specifically. This would establish them as $26 annual registration fee. And it specifically limits the DMV to issuing a maximum of 12 of these per year. So again, de minimis fiscal impact from this one.
Well, for the entire state, for all applicants?
That's my understanding. I believe there is some something related to EPA emissions waivers or something along those lines. Damien and the department could get into the details of the specifics behind this language. But yes, it is limited to 12.
Supercars up in, built up in your area.
Milton. Yes, indeed.
That is it.
That's it, huh?
That's the extent of the fiscal impacts in this bill.
Sounds like a policy bill, huh? Okay. Anybody have any other questions, concerns? That was pretty easy. Patty, welcome back. We're all done. Perfect timing.
I know, share the good news on the,
Yes.
February numbers.
Oh, well, that was there. I thought you were, there's another,
Oh, it's in
well,
the,
I thought you were going to go the other direction. What's the, would you like to comment on trailers? Wasn't that the one that issue about the change in the regulations and the?
Not at this time. I don't want to make any comments. I can come back and speak to you about whatever you'd like. I don't have anything at this time.
Okay,
I was just talking about the revenue numbers that came in February.
I can also present those. I will just say February numbers were a little weird based on reporting, so I can walk you through all that. I said that's a sort of bigger conversation. If you go, the numbers are out there if you want to go look at them. I have a little brother. They're essentially just low.
Schedule for next week, Logan, for the updated revenue, transportation revenue.
Yes, and-
figures that came out for February.
And diesel tax just came in very low due to some reporting issues. They'll be in March's numbers. If you go look at it now, it shows a very significant decrease in those. We expect to make up most of that
Or for later.
in March.
Okay.
Is that because of?
Hold it, Phil.
Yeah, so that's because most fuel returns are processed on the 25th. And they take, I think it's 3 days to actually process. The year or the month ended on the 28th, which was a Saturday, so we just lost a big portion of the fuel returns.
Week.
Pretty much. So we should see all of that come up in March. We don't have March numbers yet.
Want to have March numbers for a couple weeks, right?
Potentially, yes.
We will get. Yeah, we'll get to Logan on the schedule for those pieces. We will also have the vehicle dealers in for the February sales. March sales. So we'll see the first quarter of January, February, March. What are the new vehicle, used vehicle, where are the numbers, whether they've been up or down. We'll have that in, as well as their update on fuel piece. And I also asked them to prepare to comment on the vehicle processes we heard about today in DMV. So we'll have them within the next week as well. Vehicle trends, sales trends, revenue trends, fuel cost trends, and DMV piece. And Logan will go over the transportation revenues. So those are coming attractions. There's also a hint there you heard of some issues we heard about in the Senate related to some DMV process and changes. There's also some fee issues, my understanding. Is that true, Logan? There were some fee-related updates, not updates that were made in the last DMV miscellaneous or DMV fee issue from a couple of years ago that weren't all updated timely or correctly. So there is some, they're not in the bill, but there's some side issues for us to hear testimony about. And we weren't online, but there is an Aviation Day coming up, and there is some other work we'll do with the Commerce and Economic Development Committee. Barring any other questions, then, and I already also mentioned the 22A study that was in the Economic Commerce Development Bill that we'll be taking a look at some point. And cover all the announcements for now.